TV trash. Well, prepare to have your nostalgic fondness once again squashed by the thumbs of creators who didn't give a crap. And yeah, for anyone who grew up in the 80s, this one's probably really gonna hurt. Originally developed by Anthony Pratt in 1943, Cluedo, or simply known as Clue in America, is one of the most well-known and beloved board games in history, with an elementary simple object. A mysterious Mr. Body has been murdered in his lavish mansion, and the players must determine who killed him, in what room of the house, and with what weapon. Made all the more mysterious in that each player is playing as one of the 6 characters that are the suspects. The game has endured through a system that ensures the solution is never the same twice, and makes the players rely on deductive reasoning and process of elimination far more than most other board games. It's been made into other entities such as books and spin-off games, but certainly its most famous adaptation is the 1985 movie from Jonathan Lynn that, despite struggling in theaters largely due to being released with 3 separate endings, grew to be a cult classic once it was released on home video with all 3 endings combined, and becoming recognized for its incredibly clever comedy driven by its all-star cast of Tim Curry, Madeline Kahn, Christopher Lloyd, and others. I dare say its refusal to take itself too seriously is the formula any other film daring to be based off of a game should take. Ahem! So naturally, a game whose most famous adaptation was a black adult comedy from the 80s was just begging to then be made into a kids' TV series more than 25 years later, right? This series was a direct production by Hasbro Studios and naturally released on the Hub Network, with its 5 episodes running from November 2011 until New Year's Day 2012. Certainly if it was being overseen by the company that bought up Parker Brothers and squished them under their thumbs, nothing could possibly go wrong, right? Yeah, this is the 2011 Clue TV miniseries. We begin with a shot-for-shot showing of all the classic weapons of the game, most of which we won't be seeing in the actual plot. We then see the Wish version of Ed Begley Jr. checking into the Wish version of the Plaza Hotel, where there is some type of school event being held in the lounge, which is the only time we'll hear that room name. It's at this event that we sadly meet the characters we'll be following this whole time. A science prodigy, an athlete/video gamer, a gossip queen, the popular girl, a social activist, and a jerk-ass who loves to skateboard. Because naturally all these types would be at the same location.
I'm not a yo, I'm an Agnes. DJ Jazzy Jack's spinning a surprise set. Gotta get the word out.
Yo, why don't you get the word to my boss? You just dusted a full tray of glasses.
Hey, what's going on?
Yeah, not exactly a group of Washington socialites being invited to a dinner party, but let's see where this goes. So circumstances find all 6 of these kids together outside the hotel, where they see...
What is that?
Do something!
Stop them!
Okay, that won't be traumatizing at all. They call the police, but somehow all signs of a struggle were cleaned up from that room with no body present. So the principal just up and assumes it's a prank and suspends all 6 of them.
These are the kind of young people you can fit in a box, Lucas. The jock, and the flirt, and the gossip, and the bleeding heart, and the loser.
Wow, that's not a jab at every teen action series ever created. No, sir! And if you think that's bad, here's where our worst fears are realized and we're shown who these 6 are meant to represent. I knew I should have had antacid on standby. Okay, let's look at the ways they fracked this thing up in the first 7 minutes of the pilot episode. Instead of the classic characters of Professor Plum and Miss Scarlet and Colonel Mustard, they just up and replace them with these kids who only have cheap token references to the original characters. Heck, the only time they are ever called by their game names is by the Mr. Green stand-in Seamus, who is clearly calling the other characters those names in ridicule. Because that's the way to show off the game in a positive light, right? Oh, and then we have the tiny little detail that we know right from the start, that none of these characters are suspects! Which was the entire point of the game! How in the hell does the Who Shot Mr. Burns episode of The Simpsons pull off a whodunit story better than this? Because of all this, I'm not even gonna bother learning what their real names are and calling them by whatever character they're supposed to represent instead. Just in the hopes that it will piss off these showrunners. What makes it even more eye-rolling is how damn serious the show tries to take the plot, especially compared to the older production. Again, one of the things that made the 1985 Clue movie work so brilliantly was making it into a comedy that almost certainly was inspired by Neil Simon's Murder by Death, and its all-star cast giving each of its suspect characters personalities that made it clear none of them were particularly good people, but still made us want to watch them. I get it, you made this thing for kids. So you're not going to have characters that include a human black widow, a shrink screwing his patients, and an actual brothel madam where one of her regular clients was a war profiteer. But you could still try to have a little more fun and showing of love for the game whose name this series bears. The miniseries at times seems to show actual disdain for the game itself, which is even more mind-boggling when you remember it was made by the game's publishing company! For frack's sake, the Barbie movie looked to deconstruct all of the stereotypes long associated with that doll it was named after, and it still provided a better homage to what it was based off of! Anyway! So of course all these kids who don't like one another agree to team up and try and clear their names. And they eventually find out the Mr. Nobody person, okay, his name is Ellis, is actually still alive. Because of course we can't really have a murder in a show produced by Hasbro. And his abduction by his own subordinate at the company he owns is all tied to the guy's apparent obsession with the legendary inventor Nikola Tesla. It turns out Ellis had a bunch of clues left around to find his treasure, which means now this whole thing has become a scavenger hunt story instead of a murder mystery, because it's not like we were expecting a murder mystery in a TV show based off of a murder mystery game! And the treasure turns out to be parts used to build, well, pretty much build the Tesseract. Not kidding. They discover that Tesla created a device that can generate unlimited perpetual energy that could potentially power everything in the world. Granted, we are never shown exactly how this thing works, because why would we like to hear something interesting like that? However, when the kids try to make a deal with the executive to swap the device for Ellis, they all get double-crossed by Ellis's own daughter, who we eventually discover is tied into an Illuminati cult operating at her private school that have been pursuing the Tesla device for their own means. The thing is, though, they make it clear they want to use the device to provide limitless energy for all mankind. And here's where I have to try and critique the final episode while not getting as political as possible. Basically, the kids find themselves in between a group of 3 factions that each have their own motives for the energy device. You have one faction that wants to use it for limitless energy for the betterment of the world, another that wants to also use the device but make a massive profit off of it, and the third that has been out to hide the device from anyone just out of the fear that it would be turned into a weapon above being used for good. And we are clearly meant to side with the people who want to hide it, while the people who want to give the world unlimited energy are the most evil of all. For crimini's sake, this all reminds me of that episode of The Lone Gunman where they discover the car that runs on water, and then they give the most bat-crazy explanations for why they have to destroy it. And yes, I plan to review that series one day, so I'll get more into that when the time comes. So in order to make the audience not cheer for the designated bad guys, they have to make the secret society lock all the kids in the basement with Mr. Ellis. For frack's sake, can you possibly come up with a more blatant example of writers yelling at you that you're not meant to like one group of people? I could give you a half a dozen examples of forced heel tactics in pro wrestling just in the years before Vincent K. McMahon. I'm sure you could. To try to sum this up, everyone manages to escape the basement through bullcrap, and we at least get to see one of the main characters use one of the weapons before everyone confronts the kids outside, and Plum saves them all by using the device to fry everything without frying himself somehow. Yeah, I'm just gonna name that device the Deus Ex. They all make it home safely, and Ellis convinces the principal to reinstate all the kids, and it looks like everything is wrapped up and done with, but...
Thought you might want to see this.
That's the pattern on my necklace.
Right. Directly across to Plum Institute, or House of Plum. This is the pamphlet that inspired The Eyes of the Peacock.
Seriously, what kind of destiny mumbo jumbo is going on here? Okay, Liz was connected to the House of Scarlet because her natural parents were apparently members, but everyone else gets tied in purely by chance. Yes, Agnes supposedly created the Eyes of the Peacock blog herself, but she found that symbol from another source completely. Whitney was a volunteer for the White Lights organization, Lucas attended the Plum Institute like surely many others, and Dimitri was playing a video game called Mustard Missions that many others were too. So who knows how many other people could have discovered those symbols? Seamus may be the absolute worst because he only might have been part of some art gang called the Green Scene. What makes it worse is about half of these are not revealed until the final act of the last episode, after they all escape with the Tesla device, where they then all use their house connections and the device to uncover some big all-new secret that, of course, we never find out because nothing else was made from this series after these 5 episodes. For frack's sake, was this thing actually made by a secret society led by David Lynch? The series in of itself had the potential to be something good. The first 4 episodes do present a lot of suspenseful mysteries, while clearly teaching the lessons of teamwork and thinking on the spot. The problem is that it takes on the name of a well-known intellectual property and then does very little to be actually connected to that property. And it doesn't help that as far as I can research, there were no real plans to extend the series past these 5 episodes, so everyone gets left hanging in the end. It's highly possible this miniseries was created to help promote a video game spin-off that was released in 2012 called Clue the Classic Mystery Game, which did incorporate a lot of the same secret society elements that were in the TV show. But if that was the case, it clearly bombed horribly, as there's been pretty much little mention of the video game or this miniseries in the 10+ years since. And thank goodness for that, because I dread to think about what they might have done with a Monopoly TV series. See you guys next time on TV Trash.